This week on Archery 101, we're going to continue our series on arrows. Hey everybody, Greg here. I'm out at Fine Arrow Sports in Carmel. We're going to continue our little talk about arrows. As I said before, and I stand by it, nothing is more important than the arrow. Not the bow, not your release, anything else. The arrow is your most important piece of equipment, yet so many people don't take the time to get the arrow working properly. And that's what we're going to try to give you some information so you can go out and hopefully take the steps to get a better arrow. So this is my bow. You've seen it before. My 1967 Ben Pearson Colt. I love this bow. I nicknamed it Fudge. It's the only bow I named. It's 47 pounds at 28 inches. And if you go to the books, it tells you need a 500 spined arrow. That's what I have right here. Alright. Now what I did is I put a 125 grain head. I'm going to shoot a bare shaft. Alright, if I put the bow in the proper hand, I'm going to shoot a bare shaft, and we're going to just take it from there. We're going to see if it's weak, stiff, whatever, and I'm going to show you some things you can do. Now this arrow is cut to, I think it's 28 or 29 and a half, something like that, because that's what I used to have them done as. Alright, as you can see, hopefully you can see right there, we'll go down and look at it. It is definitely stiff. Okay, here we are downrange, and there's my arrow. Now, it's hard to tell in the video if it's straight, but this is a 90. Alright, see that? That's telling me this arrow is too stiff. So, let's say maybe you got these arrows from somebody, they're pre-cut, whatever, you had them ordered, whatever. Well, now you're stuck with too stiff of an arrow, and that can always, a too stiff of an arrow can, not always, but a lot of times it can pull your shot off to the side. So how do we remedy that? Right? We got to make this arrow weaker. Well, since it's already cut, we're in trouble. But there's a few things we're going to do, and we're going to try to see if I can bring this arrow back over more. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the 125 grain head, and I'm going to put a 145 grain head on it. So the purpose behind putting a heavier head on it is basic physics. As we said in the first video when we talked about what is happening, which is really important, when this end is being pushed, the inertia, the resistance to change, makes something has to give. So this doesn't want to, this end does not want to move, well this end's moving, so that happens. Alright? And when that happens, another Newtonian law comes in. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if it bends this much, it's got to bend that much. And then it gets less and less and less and less. All right? It happens on every single arrow on the planet. I've heard people sit there and say, oh, it only kicks once. It's impossible. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. All right? Simple physics. So by putting more weight here, hopefully it's going to bend a little more, making it an artificially weaker spine. So let's try it now. Same bow, which I love, by the way. I can't say enough about this bow, with a 145 grain head. That might look pretty good. Let's see what she looks like. Alright, here we are down here. Slightly off. I mean, you can see it. Not even an inch. So, let's try a 175. That might be too much, but that's okay. We'll be able to work this down. Alright, so let's see if we can get it to fly better with a 175 grain head, which I just happen to have. Isn't that amazing? Alright, now let's try it with a 175 grain head. Remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a stiff arrow weaker. Alright, that's our goal. We're trying to get it to fly a little better. Alright, let's try it again. It's hitting the board. Let's go down and take a look at it. Alright, she's looking pretty good. Almost dead on. So for giggles, let's see how much difference a 200 makes, alright? Let's try a 200 grain point, see if it makes any difference. Alright, now last one I shot the 175, I really thought I seen movement. I won't know until I get back and I start editing it. So let's try a 200 grain head. $200 it is. Didn't fly like that 175. That flew pretty good. I'm going to go do a couple more. Let's see what happens. Alright, let's try it again. Yep, 200. Boom. Beautiful straight flight. I've seen it in my eye, and all I see is the knock pointing straight in. So, I took an arrow, 500 spine, out of this bow with a 125 grain head, and you can see it was too stiff. I added 145, brought in a little bit more. 175 was almost there. Took me all the way up to 200. So, you can see small increments from 125, 145, 20 grains doesn't make a whole lot of difference. It does make a difference, but not enough to correct this one. To get this arrow to fly straight, I needed to add 75 grains, all right, from 125 to 200. And that's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. So if you got one, it depends on how much. If it's too stiff, you know, if it's like this far off, you're in trouble. But if it's like this, it's workable. So that's why we do that with a bear shaft. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to hopefully see what our best friend in the world would do with them. All right, we're going to do the same shots, but with feathers. All right, so now we're moving on to the next step. Now, as you heard me say, and it's so true, feathers are your friends. Feathers can correct a lot of things, and they can hide things too. Like if you got a nice clean release, feathers can help hide in an arrow that's not tuned properly. So, you know, it makes questions. So why does tuning matter? Efficiency, that's it. You know, you could probably still hit the same target a lot, but it's just more efficient. And if you ever get in adverse weather, like shooting in the mist or rain, and you have your feathers collapse, that's when the flaws really start to show up. So I'm going to shoot each one. This is a 125 grain head, all right? Same type arrow, 500 spine, 125 grain head. I'm going to put my arrowhead in the white, all right, and we'll see where it goes. See that? That looked really nice and pretty to me. So let's go to the 145 next. 145. That moved. I seen some movement on that one. Now let's go to the 175. That looked pretty good. Now I'm shooting from 20 yards, just so you know. Bare shaft, 200. All right, let's go down and take a look. All right, here we have our arrows. 2 here and 2 here. These 2 are probably me. They should have been all a little closer. Notice the lighter weights are slightly higher than the heavier weights. All right, so let's pull this one out, see what it is. This is a 145. This should be a 125. This is the 175. And here's my 200. So, yes, these flew okay, although I swear I've seen the one dancing. But with a 200 grain point without feathers, it flew just as well as with feathers. Now imagine how well it would fly if I put feathers on it. Alright everybody, I know that's not a whole lot, but I just wanted to show that one thing. How do you weaken an arrow? It's pretty simple. I started with a 125. Did not fly right. You've seen it bare shaft. I ended up with a 200. A 200 bare shaft flew perfectly straight. That means this arrow is working at its peak efficiency. Alright? I'm not having excessive flexing. I'm not having too little flexing. I'm having just enough. And that is what you want. And when you can start doing that, you are going to shoot awesome. Now the next thing I got to cover, and I'm not going to show you do it because it's really, really hard for you to do. And that is how to stiffen an arrow. So, I do not cut any of my arrows. I get them and I bare shaft them full length. And the reason I do that is so if I do have to cut them, I'll do it then. But if you pre-cut your arrow and you realize, uh-oh, too stiff, you can't go back. Start full length, then do whatever you got to do, all right? So let's say you got an arrow, full length, and it's just too weak. All you do is remove a small amount, either 1/8 or 1/4 max, never go more than 1/4, and then shoot it again, and you do it till it flies straight with the desired head. Don't go changing your heads because that changes everything. But what if you have an arrow already cut, feathers and everything on it? How can you stiffen that spine? Well, I've never done it, so I cannot tell you if this works or not, but I have been told that you can put a weed whacker wire inside here, that little plastic wire in there will help stiffen it. Some people also sell inserts that will help stiffen it. I don't know if they work, I just know it's an option. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we've talked about how to make too stiff of an arrow weaker, and we did that by adding weight to the front, and I showed you the process and the differences so you got something to go by. 20 grains does not make that much of a difference. Remember, how much weight you got to add up front is all dependent on how off center the arrow is. Alright, and then we quickly covered how to make a weak arrow stiffer, which I've never done, so I can't tell you a whole lot about it. So there's your next step. Now we know why arrows bend. We know that the bending's critical. How much it bends is really important, and finding the proper amount of bend makes our arrow perform at its peak amount. And then we found out feathers are our friends. Today we learned how to make it bend more by adding weight up front. Alright? Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Get out there, start shooting, and play with different weights and see what happens to your arrows. Alright, boys and girls, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. If you got a question or comments, put it down below. And I'll see you next time with an all-new episode of Archery 101.